Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, whatever time it is for you. Welcome to the new YouTube series in which we will be exploring different global events and looking at them from an alternative perspective. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world right now, and I think it's worth looking into those things and analyzing them not just from the physical, but also from the energetic perspective, because I would say that, as you will see on certain diagrams, there's a certain energetic relationship between those two areas where, because of a certain event, which started occurring, I would say, like around November of 2024, we started to experience that the planetary timelines started blending together, where our planet is a 12-dimensional body, but at the same time, we can also perceive it this way, that it's as if our planet has 12 aspects of itself, kind of like 12 alternative versions. And those are referred to as the 12 probable selves of our planet Earth. And we can imagine that they are on a clock, and usually they are not really that much interacting with each other unless we are going through different activations, so that sometimes those, like we have 2 or 3 probable selves of the planet merging together, and that's when we may experience events like the Mandela effect, or perhaps some kind of deja vu, or like a feeling as if we are experiencing like a few realities blending together. So right now, the 12 probable selves of the planet are merging into one, are kind of blending with each other. And because of that, there's a lot of different things that might be coming from different timelines to our planet. And because of that, there's a lot of different energetic shifts happening. And that will also have its own effect on what is happening on a global scale. So there's been quite a few interesting events that I have been collecting ever since the beginning of 2025. And finally, I am at the place where I would like to share it with all of you. And this, I would like to mention that this doesn't really follow anything that is said in the mainstream media. You can treat it as a fairy tale, you can treat it as some kind of an interesting perspective that you can choose to follow or you can choose not to follow. So I suggest that we can begin. I'm going to share the screen with you. And I'm going to be making such videos on a regular basis. And we will be simply looking at different interesting events that have been happening all over the world. And then if you have any kind of questions about like maybe something that I didn't mention, but some kind of a global event that you found interesting, you can also post a question about it in the comments section, and I will probably include it in the next video so that we could also co-create this space together. So the main aspects of today's energetic update is the mysterious mist, quest for Greenland, and the cathedral drama. And so much more. So we are going to look into those different aspects of what's been happening lately and what are the actual reasons behind those things happening on the first place. Before we start, I would like to announce that you can check my products page. There's a lot of different things that I have added there. If you haven't attended the live events that have been taking place in January and February, and still you would like to watch them, the frequency remains the same. So you can order them online through this website, through my website. So you can feel free to check out the link. And also the first level of PLASMAREGENESIS is already available as a product. So if you are interested in buying the recordings and going through them in your own time, you are most welcome to do that. Anyway, let's start. And before we begin with looking at the most important news that have been happening lately, I will just give a quick explanation of the cathedral complex and the cathedral drama. That's how we are going to call it, the cathedral conflict, the cathedral drama. Because this is connected to certain locations. We will find out that places like Mongolia, Greenland, like the places that usually haven't been really mentioned, like in the everyday news, suddenly became a subject of interest. And there's a reason behind it. And this is related to the cathedral complex and the drama of the two cathedrals. If you are interested in learning more about like the cathedral complex and what is the story behind the two cathedrals kind of fighting against each other, then I would recommend you to go back to one of my videos that I recorded quite a few months ago about the origins of our fall, in which I am basically explaining a certain mechanics of those two cathedral complexes and how they have been basically kind of hitting against each other, and that's all because of the invasion of the black dragons on our planet. Anyway, let's take a look at the basic definition of what is the cathedral complex. So the deity internal cathedral complex network is responsible for the distribution of the internal plasma frequencies to the planet that create a structure for the elemental manifestation templates of the entire planetary life field. For this reason, stability of the planetary cathedral complex is essential to maintain the Earth's environment. Meaning that if this cathedral complex is basically distributing currents that later are responsible for the elemental manifestation templates, that means that as we are going through certain changes in the planetary plasma templates, we might experience something that some people may refer to as the climate change or the global warming, but that's because the planetary plasma templates have been phase-locked, they have been kept dormant for a very long time. And the problem is that then when they awakened, they got awakened on a partial reversal. And so right now, because of the mechanics of the eternal transcendental host, we are finally experiencing the reawakening of the internal cathedral complex, that is the organic deity complex that is distributing the crystic plasma frequencies. But right now, it's almost like we are experiencing the two cathedrals being activated at the same time. And we might experience those beautiful plasma frequencies coming to the planet from the organic cathedral. And then there's certain reversals that are leaking from that reversed false cathedral that has been activated around 2009. So let's take a look at what this drama of the two cathedrals is about. The drama of the two cathedrals is basically an energetic war between the two internal cathedral systems and the dominance of the various fallen angelic agendas over the internal stargate systems of the planet in order to control the flow of the internal plasma frequencies to the planetary grids. So that means that certain fallen angelic agendas activated the fallen cathedral complex in order to control our planet and prevent it from going through the full ascension process through the eternal creation mechanics. And for that reason, the eternal host needed to be activated to almost trigger the activation of the organic cathedral network of the Ephia Area races. And then this organic cathedral complex will finally start overriding the distortions in the false cathedral. The internal Stargate system suffered significant infiltration during the Black Dragon invasion and the Plasma Wars. Reversal of the local Eka core gave the Black Legion access to the other cosmic domains and allowed for the creation of the artificial wormhole system, spanning not only through the various systems of the external creation, but also various systems on the level of the internal creation domain. This manipulation created a phantom cathedral complex network that was later installed on planet Earth, bringing the reversed plasma frequencies and the dark flowering affliction directly to the planetary grids. Installation of this artificial network had major implications. So the truth is that the trumpets weren't exactly the reason for the dark flowering, for those of you who are familiar with what the trumpets are. The main reason for the distortions in our internal plasma templates, meaning also in our elemental balance, to look at it directly, is caused by the presence of that false cathedral. You can probably find the locations of the false cathedral network in different teachings. I'm going to show you the actual locations of the true cathedral network that is right now going through its process of activation. So just to quickly explain the structure in case some of you might not be familiar with it yet. We have the 5 elements. In the central, we have the ether element, which holds the power key to integrate all the other elements to bring them right into the core. Then we have the air element, the water element. Those 3 elements, ether, air, and water, create something that is referred to as the inner white-blue shield. And then we have the earth and fire, which are creating the outer green-violet shield. And then within each one of those cathedrals, like we've got the ether, air cathedral, etc., we can find the smaller temples. So if we look at it this way, we have the core 5 cathedral complexes, each one of them holding 5 temples. The ether cathedral is the one that is basically in charge of all the other locations. So when it comes to the location of the false cathedral, I don't have it written here, but it's apparently in Florida. And as you can see, there's a lot of like instability in the Florida complex right now, but that's because this false cathedral is basically going to fall. And this is good news because that means that this actual organic ether cathedral will have more space to share the organic true ether plasma frequencies to the rest of the planetary field. The main cathedral is located on the North Pole, Mount Meru, and this is the core cathedral and also the location of something that is referred to as the portals of the eternal transcendence, which are the portals through which the souls are coming in. As I was speaking on, I think, one of my previous videos, there is a certain structure through which if a soul wants to incarnate on planet Earth in an organic way, and this is not the case anymore, but it's being restored through the transcendental host, a soul is coming through the portal on the South Pole after receiving a permission from the planetary consciousness to do that, in respect with the free will. And then it has the chance to incarnate wherever it wants on the planet. And then once it finishes its incarnational experiential cycles on the planet, it's going through the portal of the North, which is located on the actual North Pole. And that's how it's going through its ascension process. And those portals of the eternal transcendence are basically allowing for this free transit of the souls into and out of the planet. So this cathedral on the North Pole is related to the ascension of the souls, and it's also a location of the organic ether cathedral. It used to be protected by the Hyperborean civilizations that used to inhabit the North Pole, and they are the founders of the Great Tartarian Empire. The other cathedral locations include Nepal, Mongolia, Tibet, and Antarctica. So all of those are basically composing this central diamond here, but the one that is on the North Pole is basically the central one. So the activation of the North Pole Cathedral, or more like North Pole Temple, triggers the activation of the rest of the Ether Cathedral. This happened last summer. Let's take a look at the other locations. And as you can see, Mongolia, this is already a certain place of interest that I will speak about as we go through the rest of the slides. The other locations of the True Cathedral network include, we've got the Air Cathedral, and this is the one here on the top. And as you can see, this is basically certain countries of South America, especially Peru, Argentina, and Chile. The gates of God are considered to be the core of the Air Cathedral. Then we have the Water Cathedral, which I would say is quite interesting considering certain volcanic activities on Iceland, as well as a high interest in Greenland. So the water cathedral is the one that there might be like a lot of interesting things happening there right now, mainly because of the fact that this cathedral is starting to activate on its organic currents. So the core water cathedral is the Svalbard Island in Norway. And then you have the other temples that are supporting it. Then we have the Earth Cathedral, and this one is quite interesting because the thing is that the location of the falls cathedral is in Indonesia, and I will get to this one a bit later as we go through the presentation. But as you can see, there's a lot of interesting things revolving around Russia right now and the Eastern Europe. And all of it is kind of serving its purpose, mainly because of the fact that the reason behind the isolation of Russia is basically for it to maintain a certain structure that will allow it to activate the Earth Cathedral, the Earth Complex, without any external interference. So just to make it clear, I'm not supportive of any kind of actions that are taking place there, but there's also a certain energetic reason behind why this country is being so isolated these days and why it's so difficult to get to it. That's also to avoid certain energetic interference. So Moscow is basically the core of the Earth Cathedral, and it used to be a very sacred place for the Great Tartaria as well. We also, from the Russia complex, we have Siberia and St. Petersburg being the supporting temples of the Earth Cathedral, as well as Kazakhstan and East Lithuania are the other locations of the Earth Cathedral. And it's basically allowing basically, without the stable Earth Cathedral, the entire planet would shake. There would be no stable foundation for the other elements to coexist in. So the activation of this Earth Cathedral is very essential, also to restore the blueprint of the unity that is carried in the frequency of the Great Tartarian Empire, but I will elaborate on that a bit later. And the Fire Cathedral is including different countries of the Middle East. The Eye of the Desert is basically the core of the Fire Cathedral. Interestingly enough, it didn't used to be a desert. It used to be a very beautiful, abundant place in the past. So we'll take a look at those a bit as well. Anyway, let's start with the interesting news, which I think each one of you is looking forward. So there's been elections in the US, and Mr. Trump became a president. And that leads to a certain changes, which I would say will cause a lot of very intense and sometimes dramatic consequences. So, elected as the 47th president of the United States, Trump has been chosen due to its influences in the underground world, mainly through its fallen aspects, as well as the final domination agenda of the Sahala Black Dragon human hybrids. This sets the 6 Angels of War cycle, while the Eternal Host frequencies neutralize the possible negative influence of the rebelled forces. So we can say that this president that has been elected in the US is right now pretty much the lord of the underground, and he will be performing certain operations to basically activate certain complexes underground that have not been used for a very long time. And it's not like he's rescuing anything from there. He's kind of trying to activate certain structures, which I would say should have stayed dormant. And he's also aware of the cathedral drama, and that's why he is interested in certain places like Mongolia or Greenland, mainly because of the fact that he wants to overtake those places before they actually get activated on the organic currents, but they will still get activated because of the Eternal Host frequencies. So certain things cannot be stopped, but there's this group that is referred to as the Sahala. And something to be aware of, the Black Dragon Legion has been mainly, let's say, cleared from the entirety of the universe, of the entire cosmos. But what happens on this planet is that we need to resolve our own drama because we have let in certain races here. We have let in guardians, we have let in fallen angelic races. Let's stop looking at it in context of the yin-yang. We are the angelic human race, and we brought certain consequences of our actions on ourselves. And now what happens is that we need to resolve our own issues. And the last group that remains of the global domination groups are the Sahala, and they are the ones who basically want to pursue their final domination agenda, which, if you ask me what kind of agenda it is, I guess you can look at all sorts of science fiction movies with the AI and stuff, and I guess you know what it's going to look like. So the Eternal Host is going to prevent that. This agenda will never be fully pursued. There will be a lot of communities that are going to emerge in order to actually prevent from such things to happen. Let's take a look at the next event. The wildfires in California that happened in the beginning of 2025, they were organized by the Sahala groups of dominance to destroy the essential proofs of human abuse and to prevent certain communities from the massive exposure of the documents regarding the underground activity and other associated violations of the human rights. As you may notice, there's been certain, I will just put it this way, there's been certain buildings of different important people that have been destroyed during the wildfires. And along with that, a lot of evidence about the underground, about certain activities that would bring a lot of attention to the public community. So those wildfires were artificially manipulated by different devices that are the weather controlling devices. And they basically enabled for those fires to spread and to be stopped just on time. So this has been, again, the dramatic news for California. However, those fires were not normal. They were artificial. And from what I know, I think it's like it never was even discovered what was the actual reason behind those fires. Another very interesting things, when it comes to what can we expect is going to happen, and you may wonder, we have the Eternal Host activating. What is the thing that is like, if you were to ask me, what is the main thing that is blocking the Eternal Host frequencies to anchor? I would say it's related to the Phantom Atlantean timeline that has been anchored in the United Kingdom grids. A frequency device has been launched to introduce the Phantom Fall Lohas Atlantis timeline into the planetary grids through various locations in the UK that include the false Albion locations. So these would be locations of the different Phantom stargates that have been used for the Middle Ages magic and different types of rituals that are being practiced until today. This sets the red-violet pulse 6G technology in motion, and this indicates the return of various ancient Atlantean technologies. So there's been already certain experiments that I have been experiencing myself, where the 6G technology is theoretically being used against us. There's certain experiments that are being performed in order to check the possible influence on the personal health and well-being. And that is actually a technology that comes straight from the Atlantean timeline. There's certain memories that I have retrieved where I do remember that the technologies that we are experiencing these days are actually very, very similar to Atlantis. So if you're kind of waking up and you see all of those fascinating things on the sky, like the planes, I will just say, making different patterns on the sky and things like that, and it seems familiar to you, that's probably because you were on that Atlantean timeline when certain fallen technologies have been introduced. So the United Kingdom will be a very, very heavy place for a long time because it's basically a location for which this Phantom Atlantean timeline is being broadcasted, and that will be progressively neutralized through so-called rescue arc of Urea, For that, I recommend for you to check one of the videos where I'm speaking about the trumpets. That's when I'm explaining that this rescue arc of Urea, which is coming from the rainbow heavens of the Ura Lake Conservatory Eternal Domain, will come, and it will progressively prevent the Atlantean timeline from anchoring again into the planetary grids. So now let's take a look at a certain mysterious mist that appeared in the beginning of 2025 in various parts of the United States and United Kingdom that led to various suspicions about its possible harmful consequences it may have had on the personal health due to its chemical smell and resulting flu-like symptoms. And there's been a lot of people telling me an interesting thing that like they would just suddenly observe their view from the window and they could literally see this mist suddenly being created like very, very quickly, as if literally there was some kind of a device that was spraying that mist into the air. Is that a connection to the Phantom Atlantean technologies? Is there nanotechnology in this mist or any DNA modifications? Why not all of them? I will put it this way. Sometimes we have different disturbing events that are supposed to mislead us so that we focus on those events instead of the actual thing that is happening. So I would say there's been a lot of other weapons that were being used in parallel with the devices that were producing this mist. Theoretically, of course, it doesn't have to be true. Maybe this mist just magically appeared and maybe people were getting sick at the same time. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just kidding, of course. From my insights, there was a certain toxin, heavy metals that have been inserted into it. But again, my insights might be wrong. Anyway, there's been, for example, a lot of people complaining about the back pain. And I have seen that there's been a lot of cadmium within the mist. Theoretically, of course, I'm gonna keep repeating that just in case. Anyway, let's take a look at Greenland because that's another very interesting subject. So, for those that are not aware, Greenland is known as the planetary mouth of God and the official temple free of the water cathedral complex. However, Greenland also directly interfaces with the transcendental portals of the North and South. So as I said before, these are those ascension portals through which the souls are coming in and out. President Trump expressed high interest in acquiring Greenland since it is one of the most strategic locations globally. This move is viewed as a strategic measure against China's and Russia's increasing activities in the Arctic, and let's say that's an official excuse. The real reason behind high interest in Greenland are its unique natural resources, as well as stargate locations that interface with the ancient advanced Hyperborean civilizations. So this very fascinating man actually wants to get in touch with those ancient civilizations in order to get some technology from them and at the same time overtake the organic water complex that I would say is very essential when it comes to maintaining the stability of the planetary waters. So it's very important for Greenland to stay independent, and it's very good that its citizens are aware of that. Another country that is often not mentioned at all is Mongolia. Mongolia is in high interest of the USA and other nations affiliated with the Sahala due to its unique geopolitical position between China and Russia. Mongolia attempts to focus on its economic development and maintaining diplomatic relations with both neighboring powers, while strengthening its position as temple free of the Ether Cathedral complex. And at the same time, there's a need for, maybe I'm saying this because maybe some of you will feel this calling, because there is a need to do certain grid work in Mongolia. While there has not been many Nomijin carriers in Mongolia yet, and it's kind of like this grid has been very like unstable and not properly structured because of that. there's a lot of imprints like of the past of the Mongolian Empire, and that is kind of like keeping a very strong, I would say, overlay over the grids that is kind of keeping Mongolia almost like stuck in time. That's why its development is very slow. But at the same time, if there's certain work that is going to be done there with the eternal and internal frequencies, and maybe even the transcendental frequencies of the host, Mongolia has a chance to very rapidly activate its complex in order to also run the ether frequencies and possibly interface with the Russian complex, which is very close. The next thing is the elections in Belarus. And that is a very interesting thing that I would say there's a lot of different news, especially in Western Europe, about Belarus and how the situation is not so good there. I would definitely disagree with that, having been relocated to this location. I've been looking at people there, I've been looking at the area, and I would say the life is very good there, and I would say in some aspects it's much better than on the west of Europe. There's still a lot of very nicely preserved buildings from the older times, but there's also a modern aspect to it. So the Belarusian grids almost feel, I would say, very young, very vital, and they also are interfacing with the Earth Cathedral. So there's certain secondary complexes that are running plasma frequencies, and one of them is in Belarus. So like, let's say the smaller cathedral complex in Belarus is interfacing with the larger Earth Cathedral in Russia. Let's take a look. The elections in Belarus allowed for maintaining a structure that activates the Minsk-St. Petersburg meridian interface, essential for activation of the bright flower garden network, which are the eternal stargates. Against most of the Western European news, Belarus is one of the purest places energetically as well as physically. No chemtrails, GMO, and 5G policy. So, unlike the Western Europe, some countries are not deciding to act against its own citizens. And if you feel like you want to just experience some nature and fresh air, I would say Belarus is a good place to be. Let's take a look at something more dramatic when it comes to the volcanic eruptions that were taking place in Iceland, Indonesia, and also the progressive reawakening of Etna volcano in Italy. So these complexes are nowadays facing possible volcanic eruptions due to the unstable grid situation. Indonesia is currently going through the clearing of the false Earth Cathedral complex, while Italy navigates through challenging grid situation that is a result of the magic orchestrated by the Pope during Christmas. Because the Pope decided to open the 5 sacred portals during Christmas time for whatever reason, and that set a lot of curses for the Western Europe that are going to make the situation quite unstable. And I suppose this is what we can nowadays see in Germany with different terrorist attacks taking place there. This is all a result of those curses that have been put on the Western Europe. But at the same time, I would say that it's partially a release of the karmic imprint, since the Western Europe has been draining a lot of energy from other countries throughout centuries. So these are the changes that are taking place, and the volcanic eruptions are basically almost like the signs of the planet, where the planet wants to release a part of those heavy energies. And finally, before we finish, let's take a look at Russia and the Earth Cathedral and what exactly is going on. Russia holds the divine blueprint for the Tartarian Empire, as well as various locations of the Earth Cathedral complex and the Eternal Gates, which are the bright flower gardens. The Russian president's goal is restoration of Great Tartaria, since he is an incarnation of the past Russian emperor, Peter the Great. So that's why there's a lot of mainstream media saying like, oh, like he wants to conquer the world. Well, that's because he has it in his DNA. And it's not like I'm endorsing all of his actions, but I would say that the Russian president is aware of Great Tartaria. there's been a certain footage that I have been looking into a couple of years ago, where actually he was releasing certain files. He was making them available to everyone in certain Russian libraries, and those libraries were basically containing the documents about Great Tartaria and its possible impact on throughout history. So this is something that is coming out to light, and I do believe that there will be more revelations about Great Tartaria coming up soon. If you are interested to learn more about Great Tartaria, I recorded one of the videos about it. Russia's current situation on a global scale is mostly a result of necessary isolation to maintain the purity of the Earth Cathedral that will assist with progressive retrieval of the fire plasma codes that have been hijacked on the Middle East. The fire cathedral activation failure due to the Hadal region's activation. So that means that the Russia will almost create a certain frequency bridge that will assist with the fire cathedral activation, because right now those gates on the Middle East are not able to be activated due to massive reversals that have been happening for centuries. So that would be it for all of the news. I also have one more message for all of you. The registration for the spring edition of the PLASMAREGENESIS is officially open. It's open for levels 1, 2, and 3. So if you have been a member of PLASMAREGENESIS before, you can now register for the live classes that are going to start from the beginning of March. And at the same time, if you have not been a member of PLASMAREGENESIS before, you can sign up for level 1 of the classes or already buy them as a product. So if you are interested in learning more, you can check out this link here, or you can also just go under on the description of this YouTube video, and all the information will be there. On the level 3 of PLASMAREGENESIS, we'll be looking more into the eternal Stargate complex, and we'll be also taking part in the healing of the internal cathedral complex, as well as we will be learning more about the urea flows, about the Ephium source void, and many other interesting topics. Also the realignment of the nervous system, and also how to more effectively assist others without breaking their free will, but at the same time, how do we actually spread those beautiful eternal frequencies to other forms of life. So if you are interested, go ahead and check out my website. All the information is there. And of course, as I said in the beginning of this presentation, I'm also selling different products, different workshops, so that if you want to do them in your own free time, you can feel free to get them, to order them through my website, and they are accessible for unlimited period of time. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and as I said, I will be recording such videos on a regular basis, where we will be looking at things from more of an alternative perspective. So I hope you found this interesting. Maybe it was something different for you. For now, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, of your evening, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.